I am now the president, the CEO, if you will, of an alt-right, anti-LGBTQ, Proud Boy Nazi homeschool cult. So the sign apparently that she was holding said, "Don't mess with our kids." And that's how it happened. That's the moment. That's the moment I became a transphobic cult leader. I think that there are many people in this world who put their fingers in their ears and say, no, I don't know how that is ever beneficial. And maybe if you can put yourself in the other person's shoes for just one moment, you could understand why. Do you understand that the world does not revolve around you and you do whatever it takes, ruin as many people's lives as you can, just so long as you can make a name for yourself as an investigatory journalist, no matter how many friends you lose or people you leave dead and bloody and dying along the way, just so long as you can make a name for yourself as an investigatory journalist, no matter how many friends you lose or people you leave dead and bloody and dying along the way.
There was a situation that happened with RawBeautyKristi. I have a non-binary teenager, and LGBTQ plus hate and discrimination are deeply personal topics. Every child should have a right to live without the fear that grown-ass adults will make them feel like there's something wrong with them or that it isn't safe for their kids to play with them or go to school with them. No child should ever feel unsafe, unloved, or unaccepted simply for being who they are. I strongly oppose any group or individual who discriminates against or teaches hate toward LGBTQ plus people, period.
What if it was your son? What if it was your dad? What if it was your mom? What if it was your sister? And then people can go, well, I'd be mad. Exactly. You should be mad.
I was concerned. We live in a climate right now that LGBTQIA plus people are concerned for their rights and their well-being. And you see somebody that you love online, that you thought that your ideology lined up with them and that they were an ally and they supported you. You feel like, I don't know that I can continue to support this person anymore.
And you may wonder, well, why didn't you just come out and say it wasn't true, if it wasn't true? Because you really let the narrative spin. I'm just evil, a liar, and a cult leader. And if you couldn't sense the sarcasm in my voice, no, I'm not. I would rather say something and potentially say it wrong than say nothing at all.
For over a year, RawBeautyKristi has remained silent whilst there was rumors that were circulating about her alleged involvement in a Christian cooperative school that many people believe promotes LGBTQIA plus ideologies, which was confusing to many because many fans saw her as an outspoken ally, somebody who had grew a large fan base with a more left-leaning and queer audience. Yet when questions arose about the school that was allegedly supposed to be hosted on RawBeautyKristi's property and its rumored ties to the conservative group Don't Mess With Our Kids, she chose to block and ignore everybody who was asking for more clarity. So a couple of days ago, when Christie decided to come to the internet and tell everybody what had been going on all those years ago and finally addressing the rumors, her tone was kind of off. Her response was dripping with sarcasm and kind of seemed condescending and honestly just came across as just really dismissive. It wasn't so much of a heartfelt explanation, but more so just plain frustration. Rather than acknowledging her audience's genuine concerns with her affiliation or alleged association with an organization that literally has rooted exclusionary beliefs, Christie literally just came back and framed herself as like the victim of internet hysteria. And the timing of this statement only seemed to make people more cynical. It came to us not out of transparency or moral conviction, but in response to an upcoming expose when a journalist reached out to her for comment on a situation that had taken place well over a year ago. We're talking like a year and a half ago.
Hello, I'm a reporter working on a piece about conservative social media
inappropriate content aimed at women and girls. I am focusing on how various beauty YouTube influencers have become associated with what some people would call alt-right pipelines, content that falls into an algorithmic pathway that can lead to more extreme conservative views. I have so many questions.
So after a year and a half of silence, dwindling brand partnership, loss of friendships, her attempt to get ahead of the story felt less like accountability and more like damage control. Literally, RawBeautyKristi's video just felt like a video that should have been titled, "You people are the problem." Her video honestly just felt like she was upset with us for believing a rumor for over a year, despite making no corrections for over a year. That's not injustice, that's just procrastination with extra steps. She claimed, "I never addressed this rumor because it was just so ridiculous." Yeah, so ridiculous that it lasted a full calendar year and now has its own dedicated subreddit. And honestly, this video that RawBeautyKristi made, which is titled "Finally Addressing the Rumors," has to go down in history as possibly one of the worst ways to respond to controversy ever. Only just under Colleen Ballinger in the ukulele. She taglines in the video's description that she's addressing it all once and for all. But did she? It felt as if she was literally just negating the details in order to present herself as the victim. She's like, "I just want to tell my truth." No, babes, you just wanted to tell your version before the journalist told theirs. This is simply influencer code for "I'm not sorry, I'm scared." Honestly, it's just crazy how a journalist's interview can make somebody find their moral compass faster than any PR agency could. But if you were to think that the moral outrage and anger of the entire beauty community would be seen in RawBeautyKristi's comment section, you would be absolutely wrong. Because RawBeautyKristi seems to have been extremely heavy-handed when it comes to the moderation of her comment section. She's either popping off at people, which can be showcased on numerous different Reddit threads, using alt-right dog whistles such as Woke Mob, which we will get into much later, or her main audience, the people who probably watch her videos week in, week out, telling her, "I had no idea that this was even taking place." And I have to admit that if you were in a vacuum and you just saw RawBeautyKristi's video with no additional context added at all, you would think, yeah, people are acting crazy on Beyonce's internet. And if you didn't care to look up videos pertaining to this particular drama, such as mine, I will leave it somewhere here on the screen. It's about an hour or so long that I posted last year. You would have no inclination as to how big and deep this lore is. So with that being said, let's get into the first chapter and let's discuss the lore.
One day, keep praying, I keep praying.
So if you weren't aware, RawBeautyKristi has a 20-acre piece of land that she purchased in Washington. And she allowed a local homeschool Christian cooperative to use her land in order to host their school as well as events and other things. Now, this wasn't just any school. This was a school that was literally directed by RawBeautyKristi's own sister. And the school is called the Upper Rooms Academy. Apparently, it's no more. Now, around the time of the school's presence on Christie's property, a lot of online sleuths ended up finding out that the Upper Rooms Academy had ties, or at least was adjacent to anti-LGBTQ rhetoric. On the Upper Rooms Academy website, they stated, "We see Upper Rooms as a family learning cooperative, as a lighthouse for this fallen world, a place of rescue from the darkness and perversiveness of the broken public school system. The mission is to provide a safe space for children to learn and grow in their relationship with God, building a community of homeschoolers who are taking back their identities in Jesus Christ. We pray to be a seed planting cooperation for the kingdom of heaven. We are also here to inform and equip other churches and or other communities how to plant a school in your own area. The Lord told us that we would be a blueprint for more schools to come. We have faith that we are walking boldly with the word of our Father in our heart. Now, this drama really kicked up steam when people saw that this user called Redeemed Cowgirl had posted about Upper Rooms. And they stated, Upper Rooms FLC bringing the light and love of Jesus Christ to Cedro Woodley on the 4th of July parade, which is the 4th of July of 2024. And in the Instagram reel it is that they posted, which was subsequently liked by RawBeautyKristi, people had noticed that one of the children in this 4th of July parade was holding up a sign that says, "Don't mess with our kids," with a link to the organization's URL at the bottom of their sign. Now, if you aren't aware of who Don't Mess With Our Kids are, I spoke about it in detail in my previous video. Feel free to go ahead and check that out. But as a quick TLDR, they are an anti-trans and anti-LGBTQIA+ group. Essentially, they are a group of individuals who believe that the education system in the US is attempting to try and change their children by making them more comfortable with LGBTQ ideologies.
There are states right now that are proposing laws to legalize kidnapping when parents refuse to affirm their child's gender transition. It's time for us to awaken and take our place on this battlefield for revival and reformation in our nation. The arrows of the enemy are aimed at your children, your grandchildren, and the young ones who will carry the leaders of our nation. Don't mess with our kids.
They frequently use children to promote their brand online. And whilst they say chants like "don't mess with our kids," they also say other things such as God's children are spoken for because they are Christian-led.
Ariella, do you have a few words of wisdom for any kids that are your age that are struggling with questions?
Yeah, definitely. So one of the most important things I think kids my age need to hear is that God has you and he loves you despite what sins you've done, and you are not beyond saving. You are so precious to him and he made you perfectly.
Now, whilst the homeschool cooperative that RawBeautyKristi was hosting on her plot of land is not directly associated with Don't Mess With Our Kids, we have to note that kids who were associated with the school and were a part of the float in the parade on July 4th were holding up signs connected to the group, essentially promoting that organization, which is where the perceived overlap takes place. Now, many of RawBeautyKristi's fans raised concerns politely at first, but subsequently were blocked. In fact, there are numerous different Reddit threads from around that time in 2024 where people are explicitly stating that they were asking questions out of concern and were subsequently getting blocked by RawBeautyKristi for even attempting to ask a question. So rather than clarifying that she herself has no affiliations and neither does the school, which is kind of a dicey thing or a dicey narrative to really put out there, considering the kid who was involved was directly involved in their float for the school, Kristi blocked and deleted comments and just practiced overall just general avoidance. Now, this confused a lot of people due to RawBeautyKristi's past advocacy for mental health, LGBTQ groups, as well as Black Lives Matter, and just in general more left-leaning ideologies. Because we have to acknowledge Kristi's brand identity. She is known as being honest and authentic. I believe that she's one of the people who exhibits that same kind of privilege that Bretman Rock has. Like, they were the people's choice. People liked them because they pretty much just stayed in their own lanes and they weren't, quote unquote, like the other beauty gurus. Her authenticity was essentially her currency. We gotta remember that RawBeautyKristi has been extremely open about her past with infertility, motherhood, health anxiety. And due to her being open with so many different aspects of herself, her personality, and her life, this earned her trust and loyalty within the beauty community. So by staying silent and allowing this speculation to grow, she kind of eroded the foundation of the authentic personality and the reputation it is that she built. Many fans saw her silence in regards to this particular situation as complicity, especially given the current stakes at risk right now for the LGBTQ community in the United States and their rights. So just like what people were echoing when the Black Lives Matter movement was really taking place in 2020, silence was violence. And silence from somebody who has been perceived as an ally feels louder and even more harmful than outright opposition. Because at least then, when somebody really doesn't stand for your beliefs, you know where they stand. This situation didn't just affect the fallout that took place with her fans. Many people unsubscribed, and if you were to go over to RawBeautyKristi's channel, you will see that she hasn't really got the kind of influence it is that she had before. To be truthful and not shady right now, nobody's really watching Homegirl like that for real. But the fallout wasn't just with the fans. The fallout was also with friends.
One day, keep praying, I keep praying.
Now, in the comment section of finally addressing the rumors, the RawBeautyKristi video where she addresses everything after a year and a half, which we will get into in the next chapter. Don't worry, I'm not going to hold you, but I feel like it's important that we set up the scene a little bit. A fan left a comment asking whether RawBeautyKristi had explained her stance to somebody else who had quote unquote perpetuated the same lies, and that person was Jen Love, or Jen Love's Reviews, if you remember her from back in the day. The commenter stated, "Did you ever explain the truth to Jen Love? Because she also perpetuated the same lies and seemed to believe them even after claiming to have spoken to you about them." And RawBeautyKristi responded by saying, "Yes, I explained in detail in a 25-minute long Marco Polo text thread that I am absolutely unequivocally not anti-LGBT and that I absolutely support trans rights. She let me know that she wasn't trying to hurt me and it hurt her to unfriend me, but that if I don't denounce Don't Mess With the Kids publicly, she wouldn't be able to be my friend anymore. It was her choice and I don't fault her for it. But obviously she knew where I stood from day one. Everything I said in this video, I told to her privately." Now, Jen Love is somebody that I admire a lot, especially within commentary, and I've been following her for years. We've met up a couple of times and she is like one of the nicest people you will ever fucking meet. So I decided to reach out to her, A, to let her know that, hey, Kristi's talking about you in the comment section, girl, but also B, to ask her what was said between herself and RawBeautyKristi. And honestly, I was tremendously saddened to hear Jen Love's recollection of events between herself and RawBeautyKristi, to the point that I felt like it was important for me to put in this video. Now, Jen recalled the events to me directly and basically echoed the exact same sentiment it is that RawBeautyKristi said in the comment. That they had a long conversation about it and that it upset her to unfriend her and that she wished her nothing but the best, but she simply couldn't support her. So in my conversation with Jen Love's Reviews, this is what Jen said. A fan had reached out to her to basically show her some of the Reddit threads online about the cooperative school, the 4th of July parade, and the Don't Mess With Our Kids sign. Now, if you aren't aware of this, Jen Loves has a non-binary child. So this is a topic that is extremely deep and personal to her. Now, what you guys may not be aware of is that RawBeautyKristi and Jen Love were somewhat friendly, to the point that Jen Love and RawBeautyKristi had actually arranged to go and hang out with each other at RawBeautyKristi's 20-acre home. If I'm not mistaken, Jen was supposed to be doing like a family holiday to another state and decided that she was going to stop by at RawBeautyKristi's for one day. This had been an event that was supposedly organized for quite some time at that point, and that Jen Loves would be bringing her family in tow, including her non-binary child. They had a long conversation and Jen basically said, and I'm paraphrasing here because this is secondhand information, but Jen basically said, "Girl, I know that you aren't anti-trans, I know that you aren't anti-LGBTQ, but unless you denounce the Don't Mess With Our Kids organization, I honestly don't think that I can be friends with you publicly or privately." Now, she made it clear to me to state that this was not an ultimatum, just that it was her boundaries and that she had a stance and she was not going to move on that. I think the plan at the end of the conversation was to see what happened with RawBeautyKristi, but after a while of her actively just ignoring the entire controversy, including her affiliation or presumed affiliation with that group due to the homeschool and the parade and the pictures of the children holding up signs of the organization, Jen decided that she was going to be just ending the entire friendship. And she decided that she was no longer going to be visiting celebrating Raw Beauty Christie at her home and removed that as part of the family holiday itinerary. Jen told me that she felt that Raw Beauty Christie's silence as it pertains to that specific organization and group was essentially being complicit, and that she just simply couldn't understand why Raw Beauty Christie wouldn't at least decide to disassociate herself with that. Now, obviously, Jen Love's fans, as well as Raw Beauty Christie fans, are aware that they have some kind of friendship and had asked Jen Love to speak on it and to speak on her views and opinions surrounding this drama that took place in 2024. So Jen decided to address it in a live stream with a written note. She basically made her stance known without telling the public directly about the friendship and how much this essentially hurt her. So take a look at what it is that Jen Love had to say in her live stream last year.
There was a situation that happened with Raw Beauty Christie, and I want to just very quickly address it. I have written something because I want to make sure that I am articulate in what I'm saying, and I am emotional about this, so I may get emotional. I'm trying really hard not to. Whoa, it's already starting. All right, hold on a second. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm sorry. I'm not going to go into all of the details of it, but this is what I wanted to say. While I don't want to go into the details, it's important to me that I address the issue briefly. As many of you know, it's going to take me all like half an hour to get through this. I have a non-binary teenager, and LGBTQ plus hate and discrimination are deeply personal topics. I believe that every child should have the right to live authentically without fear of judgment or exclusion. Every child should have a right to live without the fear that grown-ass adults, I didn't put ass in there, but I just added that, the grown adults will make them feel like there's something wrong with them or that it isn't safe for their kids to play with them or go to school with them. No child should ever feel unsafe, unloved, or unaccepted simply for being who they are. I strongly oppose any group or individual who discriminates against or teaches hate toward LGBTQ plus people, period. And that's all I really wanted to say on the situation, because discussing this publicly is a challenge because it's hard for me to control my emotions. Hold on. We're going to dip in and dip out of this because it's difficult. I don't always feel comfortable sharing personal issues, especially when they're so emotionally charged. However, I felt it was necessary in this situation to express my feelings to make my stance clear. For those who've asked me to talk about it, I kindly request that you please stop asking at this point. I'm not mad at you. I just don't want to talk about it publicly more than this. And I thank you for understanding. I realize that some of you may be confused about what I'm talking about, and I apologize for any confusion. Just know that I will always stand against hate and bigotry. And that's the main message I wanted to convey. So that's what I wanted to say about that.
Now, as you can see, it's obvious that this is a situation that was really painful for Jen and upsetting for Jen. So it's just, for me personally, it's extremely wild to see. In hindsight, now weaponized with this additional information, the Raw Beauty Christie was willing to not say anything for well over a year, even when faced with the hurt and the pain of a mother of a non-binary child who she deemed a friend at one point. When speaking about this to Jen earlier today, she said this quote that I feel like is extremely important to add. She stated, "She was okay with her trans audience feeling as if she was not a safe person. And I feel like it's important to let you guys know that it went beyond avoiding controversy. There are actual human beings in this woman's life who are actually being affected and hurt by her lack of conviction to stand against a group that people had associated her with for well over a year. And honestly, for me personally, this is literally the equivalent of me being at some kind of parade over here in the United Kingdom, and then like KKK and Nazi saluters were, around in the vicinity, and people putting two and two together and thinking, hey, is this what Paige's perspective is? Is this what her opinion is? And I don't understand why anybody would allow that to fly, that kind of narrative about them as a person for so long. Because if that was me, I'd be saying, I do not know who those people is, and I have no affiliation with those people. But I honestly feel as if it may have been different because the people were children who were a part of the cooperative school that Christie was hosting on her grounds. So what was Christie's reasoning? What was the reason that it took her well over a year for her to come out and state her stance and her piece on the rumors that she is anti-LGBTQIA+, transphobic, alt-right, or even that the homeschool group it is that she hosted on her plot of land was associated or may have had associations to Don't Mess with the Kids? Well, let's find out.
One day, keep praying, I keep praying.
So RawBeautyKristi released a video on the 17th of October 2025 titled Finally Addressing the Rumors. In the description, she stated that she is addressing it once and for all. And honestly, the way that I perceived this video was RawBeautyKristi stating that the real villain is the audience for believing their own eyes. Rookie mistake, should have waited for a 12-month silent treatment before forming our opinions. And honestly, this is literally the only reason that we are here right now. In my previous video about RawBeautyKristi, which is somewhere in the information tab up there, I even stated that she's not said anything. So if she's not going to tell us, we're going to look at actions and assume. So if RawBeautyKristi isn't going to say, I'm going to look at her actions and behaviors and assume. But were my assumptions untrue? So let's get into the video. The video starts with RawBeautyKristi reading out an email it is that she got from a journalist.
Hello, I'm a reporter working on a piece about conservative social media content aimed at women and girls. I am focusing on how various beauty YouTube influencers have become associated with what some people would call alt-right pipelines, content that falls into an algorithmic pathway that can lead to more extreme conservative views. Christie is mentioned as one example of a beauty guru who has been scrutinized for posting so-called crunchy content about things like homeschooling and homesteading, two genres that extremism researchers have identified as potential entry points to alt-right pipelines. It also notes that online sleuths linked an anti-public school, religious, fundamentalist mission statement to the homeschooling co-op Christie shared content about. Please let me know if you have any questions. I have so many questions.
She immediately launches into a sarcastic rant about how journalists do not care about the people it is they may hurt. CC in Jen Loves Reviews.
Do you understand that the world does not revolve around you and you do whatever it takes, ruin as many people's lives as you can, just so long as you can make a name for yourself as an investigatory journalist, no matter how many friends you lose or people you leave dead and bloody and dying along the way, just so long as you can make a name for yourself as an investigatory journalist, no matter how many friends you lose or people you leave dead and bloody and dying along the way.
But basically attacks the journalists for their presumptions and even just asking for a comment. RawBeautyKristi then goes on to speak about how she found out about this drama when a subscriber reached out to her to tell her that she's being cancelled, to which her response was, what? Again?
Picture this. I'm at a 4th of July parade. I'm having fun with my kid. We're walking. We're throwing candy. He has a little bit of a fit because candy's over with. A few days later, I get a DM from a subscriber and she's like, hey, you're being canceled. And I'm like, oh my God. Again.
Now, if you weren't aware, RawBeautyKristi was involved in a controversy literally the year prior in 2023. Around the time that James Charles was releasing his painted collection under his own name and his own brand, people started noticing a bunch of different influencers who had been liking his post and leaving comments in support of James Charles, which to anybody who knows or understands the lore of James Charles and how many people perceive him to be an online child predator, people were upset with numerous different influencers' ability to bypass all of his past, especially after the Cosmopolitan article, "Can we please uncancel James Charles?" in order to support him on his brand new venture. And one of those people that people worked out that was supporting James Charles and liking posts was RawBeautyKristi. Now again, when people were asking RawBeautyKristi on her stance and where she stands in regards to James Charles, she did the same thing, the practicing of avoidance. You were either blocked or your comment was deleted. You would not be able to have access to her thoughts, feelings, or emotions on that in any capacity. This led to many people being upset that she would choose to support a child predator over addressing any of her audience. And numerous different commentary channels as well as articles were wrote about this entire situation. And one of the most vocal people in regards to this was Peter Mon, and he subsequently decided that he would no longer be friends with RawBeautyKristi based on her support of James Charles and her inability to actively tell the world that she does not support him. Sound familiar? So when RawBeautyKristi states what again, she's talking about another situation she was involved in which she avoided the entire confrontation completely. But we will speak more about the Peter Mon situation a little bit later. Then RawBeautyKristi goes ahead and states that she is being cancelled for being the leader of an alt-right Nazi anti-LGBTQ cult.
And so I go and look up what I'm being canceled for, and lo and behold, I am now the president, the CEO, if you will, of an alt-right anti-LGBTQ Proud Boy Nazi homeschool cult. And I didn't even have to apply. I just became CEO for things I wasn't even aware of. But I became aware. I became well aware over the next few months of my life. It was a time.
And I understand RawBeautyKristi's tactics here. She's trying to make it sound as bizarre and absurd as she has presented it, so that her casual viewers will be able to view it as bizarre and absurd, despite in reality literally nobody on the internet saying anything of that level at all. She states that it's all fabricated, it's all fiction, and that even now, a year later, people are writing articles about it. And yeah, of course people would be writing articles about it because you never actually formally addressed it.
Sure wasn't funny a year ago. Now it's just one of the most ridiculous. Like, when looking back on it, I can sit here and be like, dude, this is the most wild, fabricated, made up, bizarre, twisted fiction novel. It's like I never could have imagined it getting this far, and yet I'm right in the center of it, and they're still writing articles about it a year later.
Like I said in my previous video, if you do not address the situation, people are going to look at actions and assume. It's kind of like this whole situation that's going on in America with the Epstein files. Like, everybody believes that Trump is in the Epstein files, considering how many affiliations and ties there is to Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. But then in tandem, the president pointing the finger at everybody else and saying, you are so stupid for believing the thing it is that you put two and two together over. Like, obviously this is not to the same capacity, but it's like, you're asking people to use their critical thinking, and then when they do, you're condemning them for it. She then makes the assumption that the audience doesn't know what a co-op is, which is 100% untrue, and obviously Google is free, so anybody who didn't know, I'm pretty sure could Google it and find out, but let's just see what it is that she thinks a co-op is.
After being canceled and absolutely being dragged over the hot coals for this, I realized that people don't really know what a homeschool co-op is, so I'm just going to give you the brief definition of what it is so you can understand real quick that they're normal and this isn't the only one, contrary to popular belief about me. A homeschool co-op is basically when a bunch of parents get together and homeschool their kids together. There isn't like a set teacher, there isn't a set type of person that goes to a homeschool co-op. It's just people that want to homeschool their kids, but they don't want to do it alone in their home. So they go to a place and they do it together. Sometimes there's like Montessori ones, sometimes there's Waldorf school ones, sometimes there's just Christian homeschool co-ops. atheist homeschool. It doesn't matter. It's a little mishmash. That's what a homeschool co-op is.
Now, people not understanding what a co-op is isn't the actual issue at hand. People actually just have a problem with co-ops and co-op homeschooling in general. The reason for this being is that they don't have to hire certified teachers. They don't have to meet public school standards or testing. They don't have to follow non-discrimination laws, meaning things such as Title VI, which protects against gender identity discrimination. We click in, they can teach any kind of curriculum they want, including but not limited to religious and ideological material. They can ban trans admissions outright. They can refuse to acknowledge pronouns and name changes. They can teach gender ideology as sinful or dangerous. They can host guest speakers who can promote anti-trans political activism. Now, in the past decade, watchdogs and former members have raised alarms about radicalization, a lack of academic standards, homophobia and transphobia framed as biblical truth, and the use of co-ops for training grounds for alt-right movements. So the issue wasn't that people didn't know what a co-op was. I just think the majority of people don't like what co-ops are and what they can become and what they could potentially stand for. She then goes on to frame something that was very weird. She states that her sister was working with a homeschool co-op, which is so bizarre to me because she wasn't just working with them and her daughter was attending. She was an actual director. So she was one of the organizers. Big difference.
My sister was working with this little homeschool co-op and they were running it out of their little church. And the church had to move buildings. So the little homeschool co-op had nowhere to have their schooling because the church was no longer going to be open while they were switching buildings. They had nowhere to go. And my niece was part of the homeschool co-op. And so I was like, well, if you guys can't find a place, if you don't find anywhere that's free, you guys are welcome to use my gazebo. I have a gazebo outside. We've done harvest parties in it. I've had a wedding in it. We do stuff in it all the time. Like it's the place where we host events. They needed a place that was free. Nowhere else was free. So they came to my gazebo and we made it out of like a little forest school.
I mean, if you were to go over to the Upper Room's YouTube channel, you can even see a video where she explains how admissions work.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth. And I'm Katie. And we are with Upper Room Academy. Upper Room Academy is a private school alternative where we had it on our heart to create a solution for the amount of parents that need an affordable Christian school alternative, but feel in their hearts that they're somewhat compromising by being forced to send their kids to the public school, even if it contradicts their morals and their desires for how they want their children brought up to be the salt and the light in the world.
Right. We have heard from God in multiple ways about how to get this going, and He has downloaded a plan to us of the simple steps it takes just to take back what is yours. And we would love for you to partner with us and bring your kids into this wonderful environment that's all about Jesus and a closeness with Him and being surrounded by like-minded people who share the same mission.
And we're so looking forward to enrolling your children and just loving on them for their uniqueness and how God created them to be and watching them thrive in an untainted environment that hasn't perverted anything, and they can be who they were created to be and be loved with the heart of the Father.
What are my next steps? You would enroll with us on our website, and it's very simple. It's one application. You would give us your child's name and where they attended and special things about your child and what you want to see happen in this next school year at our academy. And you would submit it, and we would get back to you about further steps.
Yeah, tuition, enrollment, all those things. We can send you the link.
So she seems extremely knowledgeable. I don't think she was working with, she was literally the director of. RawBeautyKristi then goes on to explain many of the numerous misconceptions about her affiliation and involvement with the school, which again, it took her over 1.5 years to actually clear up.
Now, there is a big misconception going around that, number one, I was building a school on my property, which is what a lot of people said, that I was building an anti-LGBTQ homeschool. We'll get to that in a minute. That I was the leader of a homeschool. But I need to just say one thing. My kid doesn't go to school yet. He's this many. So it was just me letting my sister use a building for the homeschool co-op. The only way I contributed to this homeschool co-op is, number one, allowing it to be out in my gazebo, and it was absolutely darling. I just have to say, these kids are so cute. And getting a porta potty for them so that they had a place to go to the bathroom so they didn't have to come in and out all day. So they were here for like May and half of April. And that was pretty much it.
And then she explains that her son's attendance to the 4th of July parade happened by happenstance.
It's 4th of July, we're going to our little hometown parade, we're having a good old time. My son sees that his auntie is there, and auntie has something that he loves. Candy. And she's throwing the candy in the parade. So he was like, can I do that with her? And I was like, yeah, sure, of course. Who cares? Like, I couldn't care less. We showed up to the parade in his Avengers t-shirt. The little homeschool co-op that had a float in the parade had a bunch of extra t-shirts that they had made for the kids, and he wanted to look like the other kids in the parade, so he put on one of the t-shirts. I know it sounds like this is really sinister, but sometimes things just are this simple. He tosses on one of the little t-shirts, and it was a really hateful t-shirt. It was super hateful. It said joy, peace, and righteousness. It was evil. And he threw candy for all of 7 minutes in the parade. Zach put him up on his shoulders. He tossed candy, mostly ate the candy. And then when it was time to keep walking, he had an absolute meltdown, sobbed his face off, and we left.
She then goes on to make the inference that people were stating that she was some kind of cult leader.
And that is the day that I formed a cult, and everything changed that day because I became a cult leader. It was a sight to behold.
And then she goes on to state that she was completely unaware of this particular organization, and that many parents who were involved in the co-op have different beliefs, and that it seems as if the parent of that particular child holding up that particular sign held that particular belief.
I'm just evil, a liar, and a cult leader. And so I thought today I would tell you how I became those things. What happened was the homeschool co-op that was walking in the parade, apparently one of the moms had a sign of an organization that I apparently run, that I had never heard of, called Don't Mess With Our Kids. So the sign apparently that she was holding said, don't mess with our kids. And she was walking in front of the parade. We were walking in the back. And that's how it happened. That's the moment. That's the moment I became a transphobic cult leader. And it's a simple way to get a job. It's a simple way. I didn't see the sign or know anything about it, but I did, and I'm a liar. No, I've never heard of this organization before, and that's that. So the mom that chose to hold the sign, that was her belief, obviously. It's not the school that did it. It's not that the homeschool co-op all has the same beliefs. I need you to know some things. Some of the moms that came to the homeschool co-op, you could call charismatic Christians. Some of them hold signs like don't mess with our kids. Some of them do tarot and don't even believe in Jesus. They just come to the homeschool co-op, which was, I would call a Christian homeschool co-op, but some people just like their kids to be in that setting. I don't make the rules, okay? But some of them had signs that said hope is here, and some of them had signs that said don't mess with our kids.
But if the child who was involved in promoting the Don't Mess With Our Kids organization with the URL tagline at the bottom was on a float hosted by Upper Rooms FLC, then it's not unreasonable for the average viewer or onlooker to think to themselves that the cooperative is comfortable with those beliefs and thoughts. And that RawBeautyKristi is, in tandem, okay with those views and thoughts of the child and the parent, because we got to remember that this is a family cooperative, meaning that the parents are responsible for the child's education, meaning that the parents are likely to be on site the majority of the time. But those parents are on RawBeautyKristi's land who hold those beliefs. So it's kind of becoming a lot more clear to me, at least now, why she's decided not to speak about it. Because I guess there was literally no way to explain away her having these people on her land and property. Like, it's the equivalent of me having a white nationalist live in my garage and then getting upset with everybody for assuming that I'm okay with it because I'm the owner of the property. Then she goes on to finally state why it is that she did not come forward and speak about her stance, her position, her affiliations way back when. And she states it's because nobody would have believed her anyway.
Everything you've heard about me is just so true, you guys. I am this evil gay hater that you think I am. And if you couldn't sense the sarcasm in my voice, no, I'm not. This is the most ridiculous, baseless thing that I have ever been associated with. I've been canceled before for dumber shit, but this was like really, really wild to me. And you may wonder, well, why didn't you just come out and say it wasn't true, if it wasn't true? Because you really let the narrative spin, obviously. Like, you could have just kind of put a pause on it. You could have said, hey, this isn't true, and we would have believed you. Would you? Studies have shown that any time an influencer comes out and says, hey, I'm innocent, you guys definitely give them the benefit of the doubt. You really do. You give them the benefit of the doubt. You give them a lot of grace and understanding. That's usually what happens during cancellations. No, what actually happens is that you eviscerate them and say, you're just trying to save face. I ain't dumb. Okay, I know how this whole thing works.
Now, as I've already stated previously, the only other controversy it is that RawBeautyKristi was involved in, she played the game of avoidance. So using the narrative that, oh, nobody would have believed her, she's never actually put that into practice to see if people even would. Because I genuinely guarantee you that nipping it in the bud at the time would have been far better than leaving it a year and a half, waiting for an article to be pending on what is being discussed about you. Finally tell the world where it is that you stand despite losing friends and allies. She states that another reason is that family and people who were involved in the cooperative, such as the parents, were being harassed. And obviously this is not something that I or any other commenter stands for, but also not something that we would have been knowledgeable about because, again, she didn't speak about it for well over a year and a half.
It wasn't the only reason I didn't respond. The main reason I didn't respond is because without my response, you guys were being psychotic. Maybe not you watching this, but maybe you watching this. I don't know. All I know is that the families of the homeschool co-op, who have no idea that I'm a social media influencer, who had no idea that they were coming to the home of a YouTuber who was going to get canceled for being anti-LGBTQ, they were being harassed by you. Their families being contacted by you. Fake homeschool applications being submitted by you. Signing up my sister and some of the other homeschool moms for gender reassignment surgery and having them getting phone calls. Doxing. Reaching out to family members and people that used to know me. The reason I maybe didn't respond until now was because the school is not a thing anymore. And finally, I don't have to really worry about the families being harassed by you anymore. So yeah, the reason I didn't respond was not because I didn't want to clear my name or because any of the allegations are true. You can't even imagine what it's like to have hundreds of thousands of people loathe your existence because you've been called the worst things that you can be called. It's because the families were unsafe because the internet is a cesspool of psychotic, chronically online, drama-addicted weirdos. And so, no, I wasn't going to respond and make it bigger. Weirdly, when you have an accusation that is so bad and so life-ruining out there, the last thing you want to do is bring more attention to it. And I allowed the accusations to go so that I could protect these families from the absolute onslaught of harassment they were already receiving. And I allowed the narrative to be spun about me that I was all these most horrific things that you guys could attribute to my name so that these kids would no longer be harassed.
Now, obviously, there's a lot of people who are saying that she's using this as an excuse and as a cop-out. But at this point, I'm not inclined to not believe her. The internet is a wild place. But I do question why even people being attacked in their personal lives, people that she cares about and loves, wasn't a motivation for her to speak up and make things clear. Especially seems, as RawBeautyKristi has stated, the people involved in this cooperative were only there for like 2 months.
So they were here for like May and half of April.
She also stated that people were reaching out to family members, and the only indication I could see of that was a family member literally a year ago reaching out to Peter Mann, of which Peter Mann has openly and publicly stated that he will not speak to that family member. Like, Raw Beauty Kristi has family ops who are literally willing to come onto the internet and tell their business, and the Eva commentary and drama channels don't even want to address that because it's a bit much. Maybe the drama channels aren't the problem and it's actually your lack of accountability. Maybe.
I had people in estranged family members coming out saying that they wanted to talk to drama channels. I was being sent screenshots left and right of psycho estranged family members messaging drama channels.
But again, we did not know about the extent of how far things went with Raw Beauty Kristi, with people signing people up to like gender reassignment surgery and all that kind of stuff, because again, she didn't speak about it. We don't know. Retrospectively, that's bad, but what exactly do you want us to do about it now? Then she did the, I am definitely not against LGBTQIA plus people because, you know, I have a lesbian sister.
I have never and will never be anything hateful to anybody in the LGBTQIA plus community. I've been nothing but supportive and an ally to the trans community, to the gay community. Some of my best friends are gay. My sister's a lesbian. For God's sakes, have a little bit of critical thinking skills.
It was very much giving to me and pretty much everybody else it is that I see discuss this online. Like, I have a black friend. My next door neighbor is black. She then called drama channels terrorists and stated, we do not negotiate with terrorists, which, holy shit, dog whistle.
Drama channels, you guys don't understand. You're being manipulated. They are not telling the truth. And they're going to take this and they're going to be like, well, then you tell me the truth. No, we don't negotiate with terrorists. They sit around and they rile up the crowd and they get everybody pissed and they make the situation something that it never was. They start spinning a web of narrative that doesn't exist. And it's not just drama channels. I'm having an article written about how I am a homeschool, homestead, alt-right pipeline. I am not alt-right, but you said I was. You aligned me with it. I didn't align myself with it. You aligned me with it.
But this wasn't the only dog whistle that people saw from Raw Beauty Kristi. Let me bring you in. Somebody had left the comment on this video, a commenter, and they said, pretty sure you're guilty by association in those people's eyes for not discommunicating your religious using co-op sister. Which, as we can see, is a comment that is in clear support of Raw Beauty Kristi. And her response to this was, yep, and that's okay. I'll forever be a loving friend and companion to my family. Children who need safety and love and won't let the woke mob dictate who I can and cannot befriend and be kind to. My sister is a good person. The woke mob? One of the many things it is that Raw Beauty Kristi has an issue with is that the majority of the internet seems to believe that she may have a alt-right position. And then I hear her using alt-right terms such as, we don't negotiate with terrorists and woke mob. And you don't want me to believe that that's where your stance is when you're echoing their exact sentiments? And let's just keep it a buck and a beam. The word woke was literally co-opted by white people who attributed that term to left-leaning opinions and liberal ideologies and have successfully gentrified it from the way that the term was supposed to be used. Such as stay woke brother and sister because they want you asleep. That's what black people used to talk to each other about in African American vernacular English to share solidarity with their brothers and sisters in pro-black movements.
Everything woke turns to
We will never, ever surrender to the woke mob.
The first recorded use of the word goes back to 1934, when a black blues singer named Huddy William Ledbetter, aka Leadbelly, wrote a song called The Scottsboro Boys about the 9 young black men who were falsely accused of sexually assaulting 2 white women in Alabama.
I advise everybody to be a little careful when they go along through that, but stay woke, keep their eyes open.
The phrase stay woke became slang among Black communities and was used as a warning that meant to be on alert while traveling in deeply racist areas. The word wasn't used politically until the 1960s, when the New York Times published If You're Woke, You Dig It. The article listed popular phrases used in African American slang. Fast forward to 1972, when playwright Barry Beckham wrote Garvey Lives, a play about civil rights activist Marcus Garvey. In the play, one of Beckham's characters exclaims, "I've been sleeping all my life, and now that Mr. Garvey done woke me up, I'm gonna stay woke, and I'm gonna help him wake up other Black folk." Staying woke no longer meant simply staying alert. It also meant to no longer allow social injustices to go unacknowledged. Then came the queen of R&B, Erykah Badu's 2008 song Master Teacher, in which the singer brought the idea of wokeness back into the mainstream.
I stay woke, but I stay woke.
In 2014, amid protests in Ferguson, Missouri, the hashtag #StayWoke became popular on Twitter and has remained in use in social justice space since. Today, the phrase seems caught in a culture war between progressive rhetoric and Republican scare tactics. The left uses it to demand change among political and societal norms, and the right sees the idea of being woke as a means of brainwashing today's youth. In 2022, the Stop Woke Act was signed into law in Florida, though it was later blocked by a judge. Introduced by Republican Governor Ron DeSantis, the law aimed to give businesses, employees, children, and families tools to fight back against woke indoctrination. There's that woke boogeyman again. So the next time you hear someone say something like this,
I don't like the term woke because I hear woke. It's like just a term that half the people can't even define it. They don't know what it is.
remember the words powerful history.
And now this term that has direct historical context attributed to the Black and African American community is now being used by right-wing fucking losers to speak about anything that is liberal adjacent. I mean, that conversation in of itself can be an entire video of its own, but I digress. She then stated openly in plain English that her intentions with this video was to get ahead of the article.
This story that this reporter is putting out that I haven't even read yet, I was going to wait for it to come out, and I thought, no, I'm not going to wait for it to come out. I'm going to get ahead of it and say, no, I'm sure it has very pure intentions. I'm sure it's not to rile up a crowd and make a bunch of people no, I'm actually sure that the reason that anybody does anything is because rage bait exists because it works. Drama channels exist because they work. The headlines in the news are negative because it works.
Meaning that ding, 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 this wasn't about her morality. This wasn't about holding herself accountable. This wasn't about supporting the LGBTQIA plus people it is surrounding her life, such as her friend Jen Loves, who has a non-binary child and a lesbian sister that she likes to tokenize. This wasn't even about stopping the harassment that she states that the people involved in the co-op and the parents who were also involved in the co-op were experiencing. This was about her. Meaning that not only is she a fucking coward, bro, but she is also selfish and self-serving. She then had the audacity to compare herself to Jenna Marbles.
Look at every cancellation that has ever happened. I want you to actually pay attention and tell me the only one that I ever saw actually work when they responded was Jenna Marbles. And you know what she did? She left the internet. She quit forever. So that's what people want. They want you to quit forever. And the reality is that anybody else that's ever responded to their cancellation, you guys absolutely shred online. You ruin their life when they respond. So then when some cancellation happens and you want people to respond, why would they? Why would they respond when you don't listen to their response?
Stating that the only person that the internet has successfully cancelled was Jenna Marbles because she left the internet and that's what they want. Jenna Marbles came to the internet completely and totally unprovoked, unhappy with her past behavior on the platform, and decided to leave the internet of her own accord. Nobody was calling out Jenna Marbles for the things it is that she decided to come forward about. The last thing that people were remotely upset with Jenna Marbles over is how she treated her goldfish, to which she acknowledged and apologized immediately. Can you do that? So I don't even know where she's got the misconception that the internet cancelled Jenna Marbles, because Jenna Marbles cancelled herself. And then she goes to the number one reason, this is what I believe to be the number one reason why she never spoke about any of this at all for over a year and a half. She speaks about being unfollowed by over 100,000 people and not wanting to alert another 900,000 people about the controversy in fear that they too might decide to leave her, or that they might succumb to herd mentality or something. Showing to me, at least, that it really is just about not wanting to lose the left-leaning audience it is that she is cultivated.
Oh, they're not even going to respond anyway. Yeah, no shit, they're not going to respond. They're not dumb. Why would they? It's going to get bigger and worse. If I have 1 million followers and 100,000 people are coming at me, if I make a response video, I'm now alerting that other 900,000 to this thing they weren't even aware of. Whereas if you just don't say anything, the 100,000 will leave. But imagine what it feels like to have 900,000 more coming at you. I'll tell you what it feels like. The worst thing you could ever literally imagine. And I think that's what some of you guys want.
So that in total was the entirety of RawBeautyKristi's response. But there is one thing it is that I left out, which is what she said when she was speaking about a channel who got her on the phone. And a lot of people worked out who the channel was, and that channel was allegedly Peter Mon. So let's get into the situation between them two.
I keep praying.
Okay, so in RawBeautyKristi's video, she states that a channel got her on the phone and completely misrepresented their entire conversation.
Drama channels, man, they might be fun to watch. I get it. I used to watch people too, until that same drama channel got me on the phone and manipulated the entire conversation, took everything I said, straight up lied, everything lie. And so now I know from back end what I said, and I hear how it comes out, and I go, oh, so it's all been a lie. So it's all been manipulated. From the get-go, it's so shisty, it's so conniving, and it's just, I refuse to be a part of it.
Now, considering what RawBeautyKristi is addressing is the anti-LGBT, anti-trans narrative that has been swirling about her for quite some time, to attribute her conversation with Peter Mon to be anything to do with this situation would be a complete misrepresentation of what actually went on. Now, when I first watched this video, I genuinely believed that, like, oh yeah, I remember they had a phone conversation. But again, since it's been so long since this entire situation was taking place, even I forgot how things actually went. Peter Mon didn't get her on the phone to speak about the homeschool cooperative and the anti-trans situation that was taking place online. Peter Mon didn't even get her on the phone. RawBeautyKristi actually requested a phone call from Peter Mon, so he didn't get her on the phone, to ask him directly how to deal with the controversy it was that she was facing after people had seen that RawBeautyKristi was supporting actively online James Charles.
I told you not to put it on Twitter statements, and I told you not to put it on Instagram, to do a video, because that's where you make your money, and that's where your following is, okay? You haven't done that, and now you're blocking people that are asking you nicely about this. You're deleting comments. And this is not the only person that's commented to me and said that they've been blocked by you. A lot of people have commented that to me. So this is apparently what you're doing, okay? It's problematic as hell. Christy, you are digging a hole for yourself that you cannot get out of, okay? And I don't know if that's because you've said things in videos that you know the excuse you use to me will not fly with your audience because they have watched you closely and they know what I didn't, and that the excuse that you're going to give to them is not going to fly because they're going to say, Christy, that's just bullshit because you did know about it. You've talked about it in other videos. Girl, come out and make the video. Come out and just share whatever you need to share that's the truth. But this deleting people and blocking people that are asking you, that should tell you that you need to come out. You don't want to address it. I don't know why. Maybe it's because people think that you, whatever. I don't know, okay? But at this point, when you're blocking and deleting people, they do deserve an answer from you. This just makes you look guiltier than sin. I just want you to know.
Now, according to Peter Mon, RawBeautyKristi requested a phone conversation with Peter Mon to ask him how it is that she should handle this current situation as she was being quote-unquote cancelled online. Peter Mon states in a video from literally over 2 years ago in 2023 that she should just tell the audience the truth. However, the problem is that the truth is that she told Peter Mon definitely would not have flown on the internet. Now, according to Peter Mon, what RawBeautyKristi had told him is that she had no idea about Dramageddon. Yeah, you know that trilogy situation that took place to the entire beauty community that literally everybody across the internet was talking about, that literally changed the way that monetization works on YouTube? The thing that changed policies on YouTube in regards to bullying and harassment? Yeah, she allegedly stated to him that she had no idea that any of that took place and no idea about all of the numerous different allegations that were against James Charles. Peter basically said, you should address it with your audience, but if you choose not to address it, I'm not going to support you anymore. Literally the exact same thing that Jen Love said. And Peter Mon waited, just like Jen Love did, for RawBeautyKristi to make a public statement making her stance known that she does not support this predator, and she didn't do it. So Peter Mon publicly and privately disassociated from RawBeautyKristi. That's what she's upset about.
Basically what she said to me was that when all this stuff was going on with James Charles, and this is why I'm disappointed in Kristi, okay? And I'll let her share her own story, and I'll let her put her own foot in her mouth, okay? Because that's exactly what's going to happen when she does come out and talk about it. And now, Kristi, because you've waited for so long, okay, you really have fucked yourself, is what you've done, okay? And I feel like you lied to me. So Kristi said to me, and I'll just make very vague about this whole situation, that when the whole thing with James Charles and Tati went down and all the allegations came out, that Kristi was going through so much in her life at that time that she really wasn't on social media and she wasn't paying attention to that, okay? Well, I knew what Kristi was going through at that time because I followed Kristi, and I knew that to be true, that she was going through a really hard time. So I was like, well, Kristi, I think that that's understandable. I said, I think people will come for you and say, there's no way that you didn't know what was going on with James Charles. I think she knows this too, and I think this is why she hasn't made the video. Because what Kristi knew that I didn't know, because I don't watch Kristi that closely, and just for anybody out there that wants to say, we don't have that kind of personal relationship. We've shouted each other out a couple times, but it's not like we have a personal relationship. But what Kristi knew that other people knew that I didn't know is that Kristi has talked extensively about the downfall of the beauty community, referencing Tati and James. So Kristi did know exactly what had happened with Tati and James. She did know about the allegations.
Now, at this present moment, Peter Mon has stated that she has completely misrepresented their encounter, and she has also stated in her video that Peter Mon misrepresented their entire encounter. Now, rumor has it from Rich Lux, apparently RawBeautyKristi will be making a video on the subject. I guess we have to wait for her to address that. But the one thing it is that I wanted to make clear that I don't think was made very clear in RawBeautyKristi's video is that Peter Mon disassociated publicly and privately from RawBeautyKristi an entire year before the entire don't mess with our kids trans situation was taking place with her.
This is how the phone call went. Kristi reached out to me. Here, let's read it again, since I apparently got her on a phone call, which is what Kristi said in the video. A drama channel got her on the phone call and twisted and turned everything that I said around here. September 4th, 2023, 5:13 p.m. Hey, Peter. Is there any way we could chat? I can either message here if you prefer or FaceTime phone call you if you are available too. Yeah, we can just talk on the phone, and I gave her my phone number. Sure, can I call now or are you available at a specific time? Who's trying to get her on the phone, okay? Not me. She's trying to get me on the phone.
Now, did Peter make videos on the subject around the time that the anti-trans stuff was going on? Yes, of course he did. But at that point, Peter Mon had been not speaking to RawBeautyKristi for well over a year for previous actions. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, Paige, this is interpersonal drama. Why are you telling us this? Well, because I felt it was important to note that this is now two different commentators who have attempted to give RawBeautyKristi advice on how she should handle a situation that she has actively ignored, that these people had to publicly and privately disassociate from her. And now she's upset with the general public and the audience for what she's caused to herself. And let's be clear, in RawBeautyKristi's video, she was extremely angry. But was she always this way?
One day, keep praying, I keep praying.
Okay, so as I said previously, Raw Beauty Christie has always been quite a large advocate for the LGBTQIA plus community. She has promoted palettes by gay men. She has publicly and openly supported LGBT comedians. She has publicly shown her support for political-driven musicians who speak about politics and left-leaning views. I mentioned this a little bit more in detail in my previous video, located somewhere at the top of the screen. But in my quest to find out if this has always been her behavior and how she's handled controversy and issues in the past, I had a look online to see if I could see any active activism it is that Raw Beauty Christie has participated in. And it didn't take me long to find a video where Raw Beauty Christie, in support of Black Lives Matter, decided to do an entire makeup look using Black-owned brands. She also donated all of the AdSense from that video to BLM causes. However, in the beginning of this video, Raw Beauty Christie speaks about advocacy and, how when you're being silent, you're being complacent, and how all of us need to do a lot less talking and a lot more listening. And this was interesting to me because it showed to me, at least, that Raw Beauty Christie has presented herself as a positive ally. Take a look.
And I have been trying to educate myself as best I can, watching video after video, reading article after article, and listening to the voices of people who experience this around the world. And I can try to sit there and shut up for a moment and educate myself, because I feel that a huge part to play in all of this is to learn. Whether you feel like you know it all or not, the answer is we don't. It's okay to admit that you don't know everything, and that it's okay to change your mind and to learn. I think that for all of us, we should take a moment, stop arguing, start listening. If you get personally offended when somebody talks about racism, or you get personally offended when somebody brings up Black Lives Matter, if you say all lives matter, I implore you to take a step back and realize why this needs to be about you. I think many times, many of us don't do that. We do not put ourselves in the other person's shoes, and it's sad that it takes thinking of it happening to you for you to give a shit, but that happens many, many times where you say, what if it was your son? What if it was your dad? What if it was your mom? What if it was your sister? And then people can go, well, I'd be mad. Exactly. You should be mad, and we should be upset, and we should be fighting for justice, and we should be listening and learning, and we should be educating ourselves that maybe what we've been taught all of this time is not right. And even if you're 65 years old, even if your parents taught you things all throughout your childhood, try not to place those judgments on the entire rest of your life. There have been many laws and many things people believe to be true that when we look back in history, we cannot fathom existed in the first place. We cannot fathom used to be legal. And we go, wow, I can't believe nobody said anything. I can't believe nobody stood up against that. I can't believe that people used to go along with that. Yet that still happens today. It's crazy to believe people wanting equal treatment from the police, from lenders, schools, and jobs, that is even a controversial topic that needs to be argued. It's hard for me to even believe that there can be a counter argument to people wanting their lives to matter. It's so ungodly, it doesn't actually, my mind can't comprehend. When I see somebody say, yeah, but what about, this isn't about whataboutisms. They are not helpful. You can take any situation and say, yeah, but what about it? What about it? When somebody else says what's happening to them and how it affects them and how it's been hard for their life and how they want change, who do you think you are to stand back and say, no? And some people will fight you tooth and nail to try to make their point. It's frankly uncalled for, and it's embarrassing. I would say if you're somebody that is like that, just take one moment and imagine that it's your family member and everybody else is putting their finger in their ears. We can hear what other people are going through. We can see what other people are going through. And the fact that other people can hear it and see it and continually still try to close their eyes and ears is mind-boggling to me. And so what I can do is use my platform right now, say that all of the money from this video that I make on the AdSense from this video, I am going to donate. To which organization in this moment, I am unsure. I'm going to put a link in the description of this video that gives gives a ton of different organizations, and I would love your feedback in the comments of which one you think would be the most beneficial to donate the money to.
So as you can see, RawBeautyKristi has been very vocal and supportive of other minority groups and demographics. Now, of course, a lot of people are going to sit there and side-eye this because this was obviously in 2020 when Black Lives Matter was at the height of their influence. So there will be many people who will feel that this is performative, especially in regards to cultures that you aren't even a part of. But then I remembered the random thing it was that I found in my previous video, where in 2015, RawBeautyKristi was being called out for cultural appropriation when she did a look inspired by geishas. And her response to that was to put on a Mexican sombrero hat, pull up the middle finger, tell everyone to fuck off, and calling people cunts. And I was like, there she is. That's the girl that we're seeing today. Take a look at this video from last year. Back in 2015, there was a drama that I was completely unaware of, that like through our research that we've been doing, that I was able to find here. So RawBeautyKristi did a makeup look dressing up like a geisha. And a lot of people called that cultural appropriation. Now, whether it actually is cultural appropriation or just an appreciation, I don't know. I'll leave that for you guys to decide. But for me, it wasn't the thought process of whether this is cultural appropriation or not that really had me. It was RawBeautyKristi's response, because this is what she had to respond to the audience with. Whilst wearing a sombrero, holding up the middle finger, she says in a post in 2015, "Oh hey, what's this? A sombrero? Cultural appropriation." I got about 10 comments today telling me how much my geisha photo was cultural appropriation and how racist and inconsiderate I was to do such a thing. Gasp! So here's what I have to say. Fuck you. Fuck this entitled 2015 whiny baby bullshit where it's cool to get offended about everything. Fuck this era of accusing everyone of being intolerant and oppressing. Fuck people who feel the need to always play the victim role. I am intolerant. I am intolerant of ignorance and accusatory statements, thinking that I was doing anything other than taking inspiration from beauty and putting my twist on it. I cannot stand that I can't even take something beautiful and recreate it because I am white and I'll be considered racist or appropriating a culture. Nothing makes me more mad. Fuck this generation of Tumblr crybabies and Instagram trolls. Think I should take the high road and not say anything in response? Nope. These cunts need to hear about how big of assholes they are. They need to realize that just because appropriation is a big word they feel cool saying doesn't mean that they get to say it to someone who is a makeup artist and recreated makeup. Wow, what a concept. Love you people who actually have brains and minds to think for themselves. For the rest with shitty comments to leave, F off my page, and if you don't, you'll be blocked. When I tell you that if you had turned around and told me that that was RawBeautyKristi, I would have called you a liar. So there we have it, two contrasting sets of beliefs, two entirely different personas, two entirely different ways of handling controversy. And that honestly left me with the question of, who on earth is RawBeautyKristi? Well, personally, I think that she's the girl in the sombrero hat. Because even more recently, she has done a collaboration with a brand called Bow & Co. A line of merch designs inspired by The Hobbit. And internet sleuths once again had a look at this company that she was endorsing and found out that the owner had been following numerous different alt-right individuals. I mean, even more recently, when Charlie Kirk passed away, this particular company made t-shirts in support of Charlie Kirk using one of Charlie Kirk's quotes, which was something along the lines of like, God, family, and my country, and in that order, something along those lines, where Bow & Co. stated that all of the proceeds from people who purchased this t-shirt would go to, you know, some kind of Turning Point Charlie Kirk adjacent charity. And lo and behold, as I'm taking a look into this, who did I see liking this? RawBeautyKristi. Now, without getting too political, I am not a Charlie Kirk fan. However, what I will say publicly and openly is I do not believe that anybody deserves to die for having an opinion. And it is sad that this is the way that Charlie Kirk went. Not particularly because I care too much for him, but because I think it's a negative symbol for where we are as a society. With that being said, in America, as well as in the United Kingdom, with groups such as Reform and the EDL showing extreme support for Charlie Kirk, hailing him as some kind of saint, it disturbs me how much the narrative surrounding him, especially some of the horrendous things it is that he said about numerous different minority demographics, and I'm not even talking about the black woman comment. But anyway, I digress. I don't like the way that we are hailing him as some kind of saint. In the exact same way that I wasn't a fan of us hailing George Floyd as some kind of saint. He was a man who lost his life in a terribly tragic way, but neither of these guys are saints. They are symbols for things it is that we need to work on as a society. So when you couple the 2015 sombrero hat, the presumed affiliations of the cooperative homeschool it is that she hosted on her land, the rally Don't Mess With Our Kids, the inability to stand up against this group when faced with her own friends' issues with her presumed support, liking a t-shirt in support of a man's nastily evil rhetoric, and using terms such as we don't negotiate with terrorists and woke mob. Girl, if it walks like a duck and it talks like a duck and it's quacking like a duck, bitch, it's duck. It's a duck. But honestly, this video would not be a Paige Christie video if it did not force me to be self-reflective. So let's get into my conclusion.
One day, keep praying, I keep praying.
Now, one thing I will say about this RawBeautyKristi situation isn't that I particularly think she's a terrible person. I do think to some capacity that she could be an individual who is extremely conflicted by the views that other people around her hold, but also seeing the humanity in these people as she knows them in person. Now, there are numerous rumors that are out there about myself that I've chosen to address somewhere online, but just on a lot smaller platforms. So I feel like it's important that I say it right here on my channel. Now, as many of you guys know, I have been connected to, had ties to, hung out with, chilled with XYZ people who literally do not hold my own values. Essentially, content creators whose political opinions do not align with my own. Now, whilst I've said this publicly, I want to say this again now on my main platform. I have not been friends with these individuals since, I think, October last year. So about a year. Now, without going too into the details surrounding this situation, I was in a group chat sharing my political opinions. Somebody in said chat regarded me as some kind of cataclysmic conspiracy theorist. I felt that whilst I respected their right to hold completely different political views to me, I was not respected in such manner. I then decided to call somebody an insufferable cunt, which I do not take back. And that is essentially why I've not been associated with these individuals for quite some time. Now, I'm not saying any of this to cause drama or to throw people under any bus. Truly, I wish these individuals absolutely nothing but the best. I hope that they move on in positivity and peace. But I spoke about this to not only clear up my side of the street so that I can make it abundantly clear, but also to give some humanity and to let people know that sometimes when the people you care about do not align with you, it is a extremely difficult thing to come to terms with, especially when you know the heart of that person and you feel like they're a good person, but they simply don't align with your own ideologies. But I also wanted to give just a little bit of humanity to RawBeautyKristi. In the first video it is that I made about RawBeautyKristi, we spoke about the crunchy mom to alt-right pipeline and how being isolated and only surrounded with a particular group who have one particular ideology can easily indoctrinate people into having a particular worldview. And the reason that myself and even the journalist who reached out to RawBeautyKristi speaks about the crunchy to alt-right pipeline is because there is a clear pipeline. And for me personally, it seems like she might already be in it. So if there's anything it is that I can say to my audience today, truly do not isolate her by pointing that objective finger. And whilst everybody has every right to feel some kind of way and be angry, I hope that all of us choose to operate from a point of education rather than hate. I do not encourage anybody under any circumstance circumstances to contact anyone involved with anything ever. And whilst it's very clear that Raw Beauty Christie has made some mistakes, for goodness sake, there is a child predator on the loose. Silence in moments of moral clarity reinforces the exact same system that creators claim to oppose. For fans, this is not about cancelling. It's about consistency and accountability from somebody who has profited from inclusivity. Accountability isn't a betrayal of your audience. It's respect for them. So when somebody who has built their career on empathy meets criticism with sarcasm, they reveal which version of themselves was the performance all along. Anyway, that is about it from me. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed today's video. I just kind of wanted to give you guys a behind the scenes kind of look as to what's been going on. Everybody has been very focused on Christie and her reaction to everything. And whilst her reaction is extremely important, I feel like it's important that we look at everything, because there have been two prominent content creators, two prominent commentators who have literally been hurt by her inability to speak up. But again, I do want to give grace that sometimes it's difficult for other people, and just because us as commentators we find it extremely easy to be vocal with our opinions and perspectives despite how anybody else might feel about it, or who we might lose, or how many subscribers could be lost, the average person may not have the ability to lift their head above the parapets in the same way, but we should always definitely encourage them to do so. But with that being said, make sure that you guys follow me across all of the socials. I will leave them somewhere in the description box. It's PaigeChristieUK on everything. Make sure that you join the members or Patreon. We also have a Discord. I will leave that down below as well. As this video has been progressing, I've been getting increasingly sicker. I think I'm coming down with a cold. So if I sounded like a normal human being at the beginning and I sound extremely like bunged up now you know what it is. But I'm gonna go home before I snot on everything. Anyway, make sure that you give this video a thumbs up if you like it. If you don't, I don't give a shit. Anyway, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification with the bell. And until next time, you beautiful, amazing, badass bitches. It's been Paige. Ugh, my God. It's been horrendous. Ugh. Oh, that's gross. Ugh. I've needed to do that for about half an hour.